got 5 percussions and 3 toms, and it's right in front of me like a 3-tom kit would be, and with now. What about a 2-tom kit? Well, now I've got 1 percussion there, 1 percussion there, 1, 2. And then I haven't warmed up today, excuse the shit out of me. I told you I suck, that's why I used MIDI drums, so I can quantize it, so that although it's messed up, when I hit quantize, if it doesn't straighten it out, I go in through like I said, and I point and click, and I move them until they're in the right spot, and it sounds good. And therefore, technically, I did play the drums because all the articulations are there, they're just in the wrong place sometimes, and then I put them in their right place, which I still did that. I moved him to the right place. It was my mind that had the idea, but I couldn't pull it off because I don't have the physical talent of Dave Abruzzese. I'm not as good as Matt Cameron. I'm sorry. I'm not. I mean, my guitar playing is not as good as Jerry Cantrell and all my heroes that I grew up listening to. I'm mediocre at best at everything I do. From this, the vocals, guitar, drums, it's all mediocre, and I don't have. That's why I'm so excited about Blue Effects, is because they have no interest. I mean, they didn't know me, they had no idea who I was, and they showed interest. So it's not like it's like a Cousins, you know what I mean? They asked me, like, hey, would you like to release your next? I told them I'm releasing an album. They were like, would you like to do it through us? I said, fuck yeah, and they said, okay. I'm like, I've never done this before, so let's do it your way. And I'm following their lead. And so I still want to share what I normally would share, like rough mixes and stuff as I'm going. And I'm not going to do none of that. I'm just going to follow their lead. But I mean, engaging with the audience, how is that bad? I don't see how that could be bad. Aside from you just don't like me as a person, which I totally can understand completely. I don't like me sometimes. Come on. But anyways, so that was my drum setup. But you see how quickly it was tom, 3 tom, 4 tom, and then 5 tom. So it can be all of those, and you didn't get to quite hear how good BFD actually sounds, because again, it's coming through this. I've got something in my teeth, and I hope it's not like big old this whole time I've been talking to you, and you've probably been seeing me trying to get it out. BFD sounds like real drums. This is how realistic BFD sounds. Let me take you through a little trip, if you don't mind. This is just a long conversation about drums, and if you don't want to stay tuned, don't listen. It's fine. I'm just rambling, just talking about stuff. I love talking about music. I really love talking about music. I love talking about God and music. My favorite topics. Religion, and music. I mean, I like talking about everything, but those are my top two favorite things. Um, so in the '90s, I'm a technophobe. I'm I'm a '90s kid. I'm 17. Moved out on my own. I'm in Michigan with my brother, and um, we're playing in a band. I played guitar for a while, but I didn't start a band. It was just me doing 4-track stuff. And then I started playing drums for my brother's band, and that's the first band. I don't even know why they hired me. I don't think I was that good. I still hadn't gotten even this terrible. Um, so, uh, so I have no idea what they were doing, but they let me play, and that it was a ton of fun. It was a whole lot of fun. I learned a whole lot. Um, but in the process, my brother and I bought a Tascam Porta 7, and he had a Boss DR5, and I had a ton of ideas, but some of them they're just I just have some weird ideas sometimes, and they didn't go with this band's MO, what they had going on. And I did not come in to interrupt. I just wanted to join in and be part of what they had going because it was fucking awesome. Sublimation is the band. Um, so, yeah, it was just fun playing with that. And my brother, because we both went on halfsies on the Tascam to break up the cost, we divided custody. Like, he'd have it for however long he wanted it, and then I would keep it for the equal amount of time, back and forth. You know what I mean? Like, it was a kid basically, and so I would spend time in my basement. I was renting a basement apartment, and I was recording and just acoustic and vocals and stuff on 4-track. It's just a little 4-track tape recorder, and he offered to let me borrow his DR5. I didn't know what the fuck it was. He said it was a drum machine. At first I was like, fuck that. And then he showed it to me, and it's like a 4-track. The buttons are laid out. They're not touch sensitive like some of the cooler, like velocity sensitive, but it was laid out like a guitar. And you could do 4 tracks. You could do a drum track and 3 accompanying tracks. And those could change from, like, if you had, for this, like, half of the song, it was violins on either side and a bass down the center and the drums. At the second half, if you wanted that to switch over to extra guitars or nylon acoustic guitars or harp, it had a bunch of synth sounds and stuff. You could do that, and that just I started orchestrating songs. Some of my most orchestral stuff came from that because I could play all the instruments, including instruments I can't play, like violin. I could be na 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 na. You know what I mean? I could line all that shit through the entire, like, the bass line and stuff. And I even learned how to, like, I wore out my when I got one eventually. I wore out the dial, the input dial, because I would be the tempos would change, and so while it's playing back, I'd have it go between song 1, and that would be at 120 beats. The next song is at 80 beats, and so while it's playing back, I would have tempo dialed up, and then when it's going down to, I would dial from 120 at whatever speed was necessary to get down to 80 by the time the last note hit 80 beats, and then the next song picks up at 80, keeps going, and then if I needed to change it from there, I would do the same thing. Like I said, I wore out the input. I should not have. I probably should have found something else to do. That was filling up with information way too fast. Like the brain on it was tiny. It was a tiny brain, and it was more for pattern, like dum da dum dum da. Okay, that's the entire verse. You know what I mean? And then the chorus goes ding ding da ding 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 da ding 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 for the entire verse. It's not designed for jazz, like ding 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 da ding ding da. First one. Second time goes ding 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 ba ding 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 ba. Third time goes it wasn't designed for that, and that's why I was programming it so it'd be full after like 2 songs. And I looked through the I was trying like, is there some way to expand this stupid thing? I hate technology. And then I look and it's talking about a system dump to your PC. Fuck, now I gotta learn about computers. I hate computers, but now I gotta learn about it. To the point where I became like the tech guy that everybody called, because I just taught myself enough that although I have no idea what I'm doing, I was able to fix things. Because I would with my computer, I would just remember what I did, but I would flick switches and just play with things and just turn things. Okay, that fucked everything. What's this blue screen? That's no longer working. Okay, so I gotta undo what okay, I remember what I did. If I can get back in, yes, I want to enter with safe mode. Is that it? Okay, that's letting me, okay, turn that off. Cool, reboot. Oh, cool, we're back. I know what that does now, and I know not to fucking touch it. That's what I did with computers until I figured out what I was doing somewhat. So I used this DR5 for a long time, and this ties the story back together. So I programmed this album with a drum. With my computer, I can now pull stuff on and off. I'm using no, I moved over to Cakewalk by this time. I had an 8-track tape recorder, but I moved over to Cakewalk, and I recorded my album, an album with my band Zygote at the time. And the first release we did, which was a kind of a very limited press, had the drum machine sounds on it. I recorded the MIDI, and right about that time, I was like, what would be cool is, in sublimation they use samples and stuff like that. What would be cool would be is if someone sampled a real drum kit at several different velocities, so it sounded. I wonder if anyone's already doing that. Someone's probably already doing that. I pulled it up on the internet. I did a search, and BFD 1 was going to be coming out in like 3 months, and Superior Drummer 1 was already out, but it was in that contact mode. There's only 2 pieces for it: drum kit from Hell and custom and vintage. Those are the only 2 packs for it. BFD was coming out in 3 months. They had already planned, I believe, percussion. They already had deluxe and XFL, I believe. Now here's how BFD got me for the first time. I'm scrolling because I'm like, this is the dream thing I'm looking for. I saw Superior Drummer and I saw what it looked like. It looked like a bunch of Native Instruments Contact plugins, and I don't know what. And I was BFD, and then it showed the picture, and it looked like you're looking in from a studio behind a mixing console at a drum set. Now, it was a cartoony, yes, I will give it that, but it lets you move the microphones, the room mics, forward and backwards. I was hooked from the very beginning. I was like, ooh, that's awesome. And then the second part of it, was like the frequently asked questions, and it was like, what does BFD stand for? And it's like, well, they're definitely big, and they're definitely drums. And I've been in love with that company ever since, because they came out with XFL, and frequently asked questions like, what does XFL stand for? It's like, well, it's definitely extra, and it's definitely large. I love BFD so much. It hurts inside sometimes. It hurts inside sometimes how much I love them. So this album, I happened to record the MIDI track as well as the drum track, because by doing that I was able to send the tracks out one at a time back through the drum machine, like my guitar chain of dry. It's like reamping and I would just the kick. I would solo just the kick, then solo just the snare and just the toms, and that way instead of having just a stereo sound, I had like as if I were actually recording the real drums, and I had a bit more control, and the mix turned out a bit better. The great thing about it was it labeled all of them bass, kick, whatever for each one. So when BFD, when I eventually got it, I loaded it up, um, put the song to, like, went to the drum map, triggered out kick, snare, blah 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 blah, matched everything up, and then hit play, and the songs all just boom, just came to life. I mean, it became real. It went from this weird synthy, it sounded real. It sounded real and tangible. It was awesome. So much so that one of our fans that came to our gigs pretty regularly, when we had the actual final CD release party, we released it and they're playing it over the PA. And he's like, "Now that's what I'm fucking talking about." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, that your new drummer sounds fucking badass." I was just about to tell him that, it's the same thing, it's just run through, and he goes, "I don't know why you fucked around with that stupid drum program shit. That's just, fuck that, man. A real drummer's where it's at, and your drummer kicks ass." Me and the bass player, Matt Hopper, we just look at each other and smile, and we go, "We'll tell him. We'll tell him. We'll tell him you said that. That's awesome that you, we're glad that you like the album. Oh, it's fucking great, man." Awesome, dude. That's all that matters. That is all that matters. But literally, only thing that changed was I stopped playing. Kinda sounds real to that dude thought he was a real drummer. And I didn't even know what the hell I was doing at the time, and I wasn't using presets. But I mean, I recognized what it was for, and I guess. So, anyways, that's my drum setup, and that's kind of my drum story, my drum voyage from. I've got a lot more to tell about how I used to use I had that DR5. I also got a Yamaha DD55, and that was a all-in-one. It's kind of, let's see, it's kind of shaped like that, I guess, and it's got like a hi-hat in the center. It's got a snare. It's got two pedals that come off of it. One was for kick, one's for hi-hat, but you could dial in so that both were for kick. The hi-hat was in the center for some reason. There was one splash and one cymbal. But I used to use that to program the DR5 so that, because although the keys on the DR5 were not velocity sensitive, it could accept velocity sensitive and record velocity sensitive. Follow me? So then, therefore, now it's got more of that breathing kind of feel, more realistic if I'm actually playing it, but it's quantizing as I'm playing. So it's, and it's lining it up, you know what I mean, for me, making me sound much better of a drummer than I actually am. And then on top of that, it actually has like I said, you got between 0 and 127 on your velocity curve, and it would let me program anywhere in between that. Whereas I think there were 3 different, you could do light, medium, and hard were the 3 velocities on the DR5, but you had to hold a button called the accent. There's accent 1, which was light. So if you want to have accent 1 was low, accent 2 was hard, and just regular just was the middle. It was a kind of a pain in the ass, but man, it was interesting. Back then I drank a whole lot. Like a whole lot. But I had nothing to do. I was in my 20s, I had nothing but time, really. I was single, had nothing but time. And I would just orchestrate songs while I drank and played music and stuff. Anyways, this is a long video. I warned you. I warned you, didn't I? I warned you. And it's a bunch of techie, geeky, stupid stuff. There's absolutely no reason for any of this other than to tell you a little bit of the story. I'm going to be doing another one of these about... I did one already about my guitar. I'm going to do one about my sound card, my monitoring system, and then one left on my vocal booth and my vocals. So that's all for now. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was entertaining or goofy or stupid or any of that stuff. Gearedmah, highly derivative, coming out probably, I think they said I'm going to be finished sometime probably mid next month. And they said that we would try to shoot for a June, July release. So look for that. But also check out Mark Skin Radio because they play Gearedmah. I won't say frequently, but they play Gearedmah way more often than anybody else is. And there's some great DJs on there. They got a great chat forum online where you can talk to the community. The Boston community or the Mark Skin Radio community is awesome. They're just a lot of just music fans. They just love music. How many are musicians? I really don't know. But I mean, I'm new to the thing. I just found out about Mark Skin Radio about a year and a half ago. Christian, me and him, we got a lot in common. We did a book review of Mark Lanigan's memoirs, Sing Backwards and Weep. We both got a copy of that, and we were talking online about how blah, blah. And he's like, we ought to do a book review, and I'm like, I would love to be on the air, dude, and do a. Are you shitting me? So he focused the entire set while we were talking as a 50-minute interview or whatever. We were talking about the book, trying our best not to give away any spoilers. And it was all, a lot of it had some actual Mark Lanigan solo stuff, some Screaming Tree stuff. I think there's a lot of Mark Lanigan and Screaming Tree stuff going on. And then Gearedmah got played. That was like a dream come true, man. It was like, you know what I mean? Like, come on, being on the same radio station as those dudes, that's amazing, dude. That's awesome. It's so fucking cool. But anyways, I hope you guys will check out Mark Skin Radio anyways. Even if you don't like me or whatever, check it out because it's free. And they have some great DJs and great music, and they're on all the time. So tune in, Mark Skin Radio on the TuneIn app, any radio app that you can get for iPhone or Android. You should be able to get Mark Skin Radio, and it's just like it sounds, Mark Skin Radio. And you can go to markskinradio.com from your tablet or whatever, and they have a listen live. You can click there, and it'll open up a player and let you play it from there. So you ain't got no excuse now, do you? You tried to excuse yourself, but you ain't got no excuse. I don't have enough storage space on my hard drive.